Hi, welcome to This Week in Ames. I'm Susan Guiazda. On today's show, we'll check in and learn some more information about biking in Ames. My guests today are Steve Libby and Sarah Katie. They're members of the Ames Bicycle Coalition. Hey, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us, Susan.
Glad to be here.
Well, I see you have some biking gear, and we have a lot of biking conversations to have. But first, just let me tell you how impressed I am by the number of people I see biking in Ames. Making the commitment to biking can be tricky, and I know you have some great tips and techniques for people to continue that.
Yeah, so we're members of the Ames Bicycle Coalition here in Ames, and this is a group that advocates bicycling in Ames. Over the last year, we've been very active in participating in the Long Range Transportation Plan, which was recently approved by the city. And we continue to plan on being involved with the planning aspects in Ames. And we also participate a lot in the encouragement aspect. Our big event in the last couple years has been Bike Month, which is May, and also Bike to Work Week. And the city was nice enough to host a Bike to Work Week breakfast downstairs of City Hall with all of the city council members, and that was a really great way for the city to encourage bicycling in Ames.
How long have you been with the Ames Bicycle Coalition?
I've been active for about a year.
Yeah, probably about the same, maybe a little longer.
Yeah, the group was formed probably about 2.5 or 3 years ago, and two of the original founding members took off on their bicycles this summer to tour around the country and play music, and a couple of the founding members are still here in town and remain active in bicycling advocacy with the city.
So a lot more people are getting involved in biking, and I see motivations vary from being very committed to a sustainable lifestyle to the economics of biking versus owning a vehicle, just to wanting to have more exercise. Can you tell me a little bit about your biking experience and what motivates you?
I've been biking for a long time on a daily basis, and that was started because I couldn't afford a vehicle. But I would say that probably I would have to speculate, 90-95% of the people that bike also do have a vehicle, and biking is a choice, not a requirement for most people. And I think it is something that you are seeing more of, and as you say, there are a number of reasons for that, economics being one, exercise being another. I think a concern for environmental impact being another piece of that. And biking is just, particularly in Ames, it's a smallish town with not lots of steep hills. Mm-hmm. It's very convenient. It's an easy way to get to and from downtown or campus or wherever you need to go.
And Sarah, you mentioned you've been a biker for a long time.
Yeah, so my dad owned a bike store in Sioux Falls, South Dakota for 30 some odd years, and I was active mostly in the recreational cycling community growing up. I moved to Ames about 11 years ago, and as a graduate student, I biked to campus. As Steve said, Ames isn't a big city. It's a very compact city. We don't have a lot of sprawl, especially if you're living near campus. So it is a very convenient way, and it's a very cost-effective way to commute to campus. Especially when the weather's nice, it's nice to be able to get outside and avoid the space constraints on Ride that we are all feeling in the last couple of years. For me, actually, now I live and work fairly near to campus. I work on campus, and bicycling to campus for me is actually more convenient and often faster than driving, just because the traffic around campus can be very challenging, especially in the evening hours. And parking for me, if I were to park on campus, I have to park a ways away from my building. And if I ride my bike, I can park right next to my building, and that's extremely convenient. So it's actually faster for me to bike to work most days than it is to drive.
So are you noticing more interest, or it just seems like I see more people biking these days?
Definitely seems that way to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been surprised in just the past couple of years how much biking seems to have picked up in Ames.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just with the student population increase in the last 5 years, you know, we're looking at 8,000 additional students, and so the constraints that they are feeling with the SciRide capacity, and also that just the increase in the student population close to campus, it makes a lot of sense for a lot of those people to bicycle to campus on a regular basis. And I think there are people like me that are you know, employees around town, and they're just seeing that it makes more sense, you know, with the traffic increases, with the vehicle traffic increases, that cycling around town is often easier than dealing with traffic. And it makes a lot of sense. We have a lot of events in town, you know, such as tailgating or other sporting events, you know, parades, community events like Octagon Arts Festival, things like that, where parking is extremely limited. And cycling to those events makes a lot of sense, and then you just don't have to worry about parking.
So there's a lot of
Yeah.
reasons for
Yeah.
people to want to bike. One of the sort of the primary concern, I think, of every biker is to be safe. And motorists sometimes are not always clear on how they can best help bikers stay safe. So what are some of the things that you've seen as sort of veteran bikers that vehicles do right and things that they could improve on?
Well, I think you have to look at it that it goes both ways. You know, bikers have to pay attention to what they're doing, just as motorists have to pay attention to what they're doing. One of the big ones, and you know, this is true whether you're choosing to bike or whether you're choosing to drive a car. If you're coming to a turn and you're going to turn right, motorists and bikers almost always are looking to the left because you want to make sure, you know, what's coming isn't going to hit me. But we tend to forget to look to the right also. And then we may miss, you know, a pedestrian that's coming across or another biker that's coming across in the sidewalk route. That's a really common one. I think the long and short really comes down to pay attention to the rules of the road. Not everybody who bikes uses the road. I tend to use the road a majority of the time. But when there's a good pathway that's pretty well connected from where I want to get to, or from where I'm going to where I'm starting from to where I'm going, then you know I may take that instead of being on the road. But even then, every time you hit an intersection, that's where things can get really interesting, and you just have to pay attention to what are the rules and what's actually happening. So being focused on your task and not being, you know, thinking too much about what's going on, you know, somewhere else right now, or be in a big hurry to get somewhere.
Do you ever bike with headphones in, or?
No.
I never do.
No. I've heard two things about one: be noticeable and be predictable.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. You know, Ames is a challenging city right now just because we have some areas with great infrastructure, like Steve has said, with a side path or a shared use path or a path through a park. But a lot of that infrastructure isn't connected, unfortunately, and we're working on improving that within the long-range transportation plan. But right now, you know, as Steve mentioned, when that infrastructure ends and you're looking for a path to additional infrastructure, or you have to take, you know, into the street or whatever, making sure that you pay attention during those transitions, and that you do be predictable. You're not, you know, hopping on and off the sidewalk to avoid pedestrians or to avoid parked cars or something like that. Make sure you can stay consistent when you're on your bicycle. Another thing I would say is I see a lot of people on bicycles riding very close to the edge of the road, and I wouldn't recommend that for one reason, and that is you're not always so visible on the edge of the road, and a person in a car may think it's safe to pass you when you're very close to the edge of the road. So the state law says to ride as far right as practicable, and that means as far right as feasible, but it's not always safe for you to be as far right as you can be. You know, when you're riding close to the gutter, there's, you know, sticks and debris, trash, potholes, gutter, grates in the gutters and whatnot. And so for you to suddenly swerve out into traffic to avoid something like that, that can present a hazard when you're on your bicycle. Another thing is motorists may think it's safe to pass you when there's oncoming traffic or there's parked cars on the other side of the street. And that's not necessarily a safe situation either. So ride out a little bit further from the curb than you think you should, maybe. I typically like to ride maybe where the right wheel of a car, you can sort of see that rut in the road or that discoloration in the road. That's typically where I like to ride in the roadway. And that frustrates some drivers. But in general, I think most drivers respect that you are being predictable and that you are making yourself visible, and they're willing to wait until it's safe to pass you when the roadway is wide enough or there aren't parked cars or oncoming vehicles.
Is there anything that motorists do that you find sort of frustrating? You said not looking to the right and maybe turning in front of a biker or even a pedestrian that you didn't see. I know a lot of motorists are not always good about coming to a complete stop at intersections, as are some bikers.
Bikers are not good at that either. That's absolutely true.
So
I think,
are there other things that you think of that, if motorists would just stop doing this, you'd really appreciate? Do they ride too close? Do they?
Well, I think a big challenge for different types of vehicles, bicycle being one type of vehicle, motorists being another type of vehicle, is the disparity in speed. A bike obviously can't go as fast as a car, usually. And so when a motorist comes up behind a bicycle, there's a tendency to want to get around it in, fairly short order. And that can create a hazard, obviously, if you getting impatient, basically. And again, I think that comes back to just be focused on what your task is. If you've chosen to drive somewhere, okay. Follow that and be intelligent. If there's a bicycle there, well, that's really not that much different than another car in the road in terms of the way you want to deal with it. If you can pass it, say, bikes go sort of like farm equipment. We don't have a big issue with farm equipment out there. So, you come up behind a tractor, you slow down. When it's safe, you go around. Same thing with a bicycle.
Absolutely. There's so much more to bike safety, and I just don't think we're going to be able to cover it all today. I hope both of you will consider coming back.
I'd be delighted to.
Yeah, we haven't talked about night riding or biking with kids.
A lot of things we haven't talked about.
Yeah, or year-round riding, all the things we didn't
which
mention.
is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing the message of safety. I think you've given motorists a couple of tips and bikers a couple of tips as well. Thank you for coming on the show.
Sure. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
If you're looking at your calendar and it is November, remember there's a couple of dates coming up at the City of Ames that you should know about. We will be closed on Thanksgiving on Thursday, November 26th, and the day after, that's Friday, November 27th. Also, we have Yard Waste Free Days coming to an end. We'll have the last few Yard Waste Free Days on Saturday, November 21st and Saturday, December 7th. If you'd like more information on those events, you can find them on our website at cityofames.org. Well, that's our show for today. Thanks for watching, and tune in next week for This Week in Ames.